Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at a pretty interesting little bayonet. This is a Brazilian, I've been avoiding saying this word all day, Moscatel, I don't know, that word, M968 bayonet. Um, they're made to fit the 7.62 NATO Moscatel Modelo 968 carbines. So Moscatel, I think it translates to carbine. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's sort of like the Portuguese version of musketoon that they have in French. So it's the carbine 968 rifle and bayonet. Now, these bayonets weren't made new. They were actually converted from pre-existing stock. So Brazil had stacks and stacks of older Mauser style rifles like the 1894s, 1908s, the 98, sorry, 08 34s or 35s, I can't really remember, but they got stacks of these Mausery style of bayonets in stock that they've been using for years. So instead of making new bayonets, they just converted pre-existing ones, and here's a model 1908, and you can see the kind of bayonet that they would have had in service that would have been converted into something nice and short and handy like that. And the conversions were done at the, however you pronounce this, factory from 1968 onwards. And I don't know how long they made them for. I couldn't find that information. I had a pretty decent look. And I don't know how many they made either. So I'm basing production numbers on serial numbers, and this one here actually has the highest serial number I can find anywhere at 111,000. But considering the size of Brazil's military and the fact that these rifles and bayonets were likely used for national service and reserve forces and things like that, I wouldn't be surprised if there were many, many more made than just that. But we'll jump into the history. I've just spent all afternoon going down the deep rabbit hole of Brazilian Mausers and different calibers and things like that. Great fun. I highly recommend it. I'll give you a brief rundown. So, 1894, Brazil starts adopting their first Mausers, and they were in 7mm or 7 by 57mm. So, I've heard that referenced as one of the best calibers of the 20th century. Whether it is or isn't, I'll leave that up to you. But Brazil used it, Spain used it, I think, and from what I hear, it's a great hunting cartridge. But they used that all the way up until the end of World War II. During World War II, Brazil forces actually fought alongside US forces in, I think it was Italy, I can't really remember, and they had a bit of exposure to 30-06. And post-war, I'm not sure exactly why, but Brazil started converting all of their rifles from 7mm Mauser to 30-06. Now, that might be because America produced an absolute shit ton of 30-06 and it was cheap, accessible, there were plenty out there you could buy for a fair price. Or maybe it was because they, working alongside US forces, maybe they really liked it. Or maybe a combination of the two, or maybe another reason. I really don't know. But post World War II, Brazil started converting some of their rifles to take 30-06, and I think they made a couple brand new as well, maybe a self-loading rifle. I can't really remember. What was it? There was a self-loading rifle, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, some of the conversions were like the Modelo 949 and 954. So they used 30-06 for a couple of years, and that was something we see a little bit throughout South America, through, the early Cold War, like Colombia and places like that were adopting handy little carbines in heavy hitting 30-06, not particularly pleasant to shoot. But in 1964, Brazil adopted the FNFAL. I think they started producing their own version as well. And with that, they were using a Type C socket bayonet, which had this same scabbard. Now, the FAL, as we all know, is in 7.62 NATO, so different caliber. So they want to standardise across their entire armed force. They don't want both 30-06 and 7.62 NATO in service at the same time. Logistical nightmare. So they started converting pre-existing Mausers, again, now into 7.62 NATO. So some of these rifles, I don't know if they're now onto their third caliber, or maybe there's just they started converting some that were made into 30-06, I don't know, but they started converting them in 1968. It took them a couple of years to get their act together, and essentially what we got was the M968 bayonet. There's a whole bunch of changes compared to the original bayonets, as you can see. We'll jump into that when I talk about the construction. But you can see they've got like a new cross piece, new finish, shortened blade, new scabbard. So, whole bunch of little changes. But I should also talk about the actual rifle itself, the Moscow 968. So, they didn't just change the caliber, they did a couple of other bits and pieces to it, which are relevant to what we're talking about today. So first off, they also changed the sights, not really relevant to this, but they gave it like a HK G3 style of rotating drum sight, which was really cool. I would love a Mauser rifle with one of those. And what is relevant to us is they actually attached a foul muzzle device, so a 22mm Stanag style of muzzle device used for rifle grenades, so that they could train soldiers who are using Mauser rifles, whether they're national service or reservist or something like that. They can still learn how to use rifle grenades if they ever have to move up and adopt FALs as well. Or better yet, they can still use rifle grenades if they have to use these Mauser rifles in some godforsaken conflict. Now, because we have a new 22mm Stanag muzzle device, our pre-existing small little Mauser muzzle ring isn't going to fit, so that's why they changed the crossguard. Gives us a nice big Stanag 22mm muzzle ring. Quite nice. Because of that muzzle device, you actually do hear the rifle referred to as the Moscow FAL, or Moscow FAL, because it's sort of got that FAL influence in it, which is really cool. Now, these rifles and bayonets were issued to anyone who wasn't, forward-facing. So they were second-line troops, guards. They were used in ceremonial duties. I think they're still used in some ceremonial duties, which is pretty cool. And from what I read, national service as well. So national servicemen would train with these. But all that aside, we'll jump into the construction, and I'll pull the other bayonet down so we can really see what's going on here. As you can see, we've significantly shortened the blade down to like 5-6 inches. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's not very much. This one still has cosmoline on the blade. I don't want to remove it because that's part of the story. At some point it was deep cleaned, coated cosmoline, put away for storage. I'm going to leave that on there because in my opinion that's part of the history. I used to be really big on cleaning cosmoline off of bayonets, but these days I like to leave it because A, it's part of the story, it's original, and B, it preserves it better than pretty much anything I can put on it. Anyway, as you can see, significantly shortened the blades, given a spear point. Fuller now runs all the way to the point as you get in these style of shortened bayonets. We've completely swapped out the crossguard, so they haven't just removed the quillin, they've completely replaced it. That is a completely new piece. The grips on this one also have a larger clearance hole. I don't know if maybe these grips came from a different version of bayonet than this one, but there is a little bit of a difference there. Also, the grips are now screwed on, whether these early ones were riveted on. But again, they had a lot of different variations of these bayonets, all very similar. Likely some of those other ones also had screws. But as you can see, it's sort of like domed on one side, and then we've got like a fork screw arrangement on the other. I should also point out the finish has been drastically changed. So while it used to be nice and bright in the white, now we have this really dark sort of black oxide parkerized finish. It's seems very effective. Pommel, pretty much identical. I'm not seeing any difference in the pommel whatsoever. And while the old ones used these old school leather and brass, or later leather and steel scabbards, I'll move that out of the way. Now we have this imbel scabbard. So this is the same scabbard you see on Brazilian Val C bayonets, as well as their M3 fighting knives, which I really want to get my hands on one of them. I think they're neat. And I imagine they probably used it for other bits and pieces as well. So they mass produce these, absolutely stacks out there. It's just a plastic body. We've got a leg strap hole down the bottom. I've got a little, I suppose it's kind of like a frog stud, but it's not. Little throat, internal spring for retention, and riveted on frog. We don't have a belt loop. We only have a Model 1910 wire hanger assembly, so very US. And then we have our little snap. And that's all there is to the construction. This is actually a darker color than I usually see with the Brazilians. They usually have like a lighter green and a particular stitching pattern on the back I've come to associate with the Brazilian ones. So maybe this is early production or late production, or maybe they just have some different versions of variations out there that I've not really noticed before. Or hell, maybe it's not even matching. I don't know, but I assume it is. So that's all there really is to say about the construction of this bayonet. I really like it. Like, it's a really big handle designed for a long bayonet, and a big handle on a short blade is just fantastic. It reminds me of the M7. I like that a lot. But I'll jump into the markings, and there really aren't many. So the only marking that you really come across is the serial number on the right crosspiece. Calling it a crosspiece and not a cross guard, because that is not guarding you from anything. And as you can see here, we got 111, was that 687? Now, the vast majority of these I've seen have been 5 digits in length. This is the only one I managed to find online that had a 6-digit serial number, so take of that what you will. But I only managed to look at about 9 or 10, not too many, very small sample size. The other marking that you can find is sometimes on the snap, not on this one, but you can faintly make it out under the paint just there on the rivet is Ebel, which is the manufacturer of snaps and fasteners and things like that in Brazil. And they supplied all the snaps and fasteners to this factory to make these frogs. And you see this on the Valsea bayonet frogs and all that, because again, they're the same. But that's all there is to say about this bayonet. I've seen them sell really, really cheap in the States, like dirt cheap. But then on the international market outside of the States, because they don't pop up too often, you see people asking crazy money for them. I say crazy money, like maybe $200, $250, but that's a lot of money for something like this, when in the States I've seen them sell for, $40. So hopefully I can do a trip to the States next year, maybe, and maybe I can hit one of the big gun shows like the Baltimore Gun Show and come back with a stack of loot, stuff like this that's just not available in Australia for a decent price. I'm actually looking at doing some big international orders at the moment to bring some great stuff over for me to look at, but international shipping is killing me. So we'll see what I can get my hands on. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about this one here. Really cool little bayonet. Not mine, wish it was. Belongs to a mate. But yeah, really nice. I just wish they had more markings on them and that there was more readily available history. Is that a marking there? A little G or something, or a B? B? No idea what that is, just down there on the left pommel. I had a pretty good look at this prior to filming and I didn't spot that, so there you go. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. If you have any more information on these, please feel free to comment and link below. We'd love to see what you've got, and thanks for watching.